Biden admin preparing major crackdown on power plants that fuel the nation's grid. Let's dive into the details, shall we? The Biden administration is reportedly finalizing a proposal that would force fossil fuel fired power plants to substantially curb emissions or utilize costly carbon capture technology. The proposal, which will soon be released by the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, is expected to require coal and natural gas fired power plants to cut or capture the vast majority of their carbon dioxide emissions by 2040, the New York Times reported on Saturday, citing officials briefed on a draft of the plan. The regulation, if finalized, would represent the first ever federal action curbing power plant emissions. EPA cannot comment because the proposals are currently under an interagency review. EPA spokesperson Maria McKellis told Fox News Digital in a statement. But we have been clear from the start that we will use all of our legal upheld tools grounded in decades-old bipartisan law to address dangerous air pollution and protect the air our children breathe today and for generations to come, McKellis said. An Office of Management and Budget filing from late last year stated that the EPA anticipates issuing a proposed rule for the action described as a proposal to limit greenhouse gas emissions from existing fossil fuel fired plants in spring 2023 and promulgating a final rule by summer of 2024. The filing noted there are no EPA regulations on the books limiting emissions from existing electronic generating units. Overall, there are 3,393 fossil fuel-fired power plants nationwide, the majority of which are natural gas plants, according to the most recent federal data. Those plants generate more than 60% of the nation's electricity, compared to the roughly 14% of electricity generated by wind and solar projects. However, EPA data shows that the electric power sector accounts for about 25% of total U.S. emissions, placing it behind only the transportation sector and slightly ahead of the industrial sector. As such, fossil fuel power plants have been targeted by environmentalists and Democratic lawmakers who argue that emissions must be reduced in an effort to stave off catastrophic climate change. Shortly after he took office, President Biden pledged to enable the nation to achieve an up to 50% total emissions reduction by 2030 and to create a carbon pollution-free power sector by 2035. Setting effective, affordable power plant carbon standards under the Clean Air Act now can ensure that the power industry delivers the emissions reductions needed to help meet the climate crisis, argued an issue brief released this month by the Natural Resources Defense Council, an influential environmental group. Time is of the essence. The EPA needs to move exponentially, proposing power plants carbon standards soon as promised and finalizing them by early next year, the brief added. This will allow states and power companies to get to work on implementing them so we can curb this dangerous pollution and safeguard the climate as soon as possible. However, the fossil fuel industry has pushed back, arguing the U.S. power grid is still deeply reliant on coal, natural gas, and petroleum. The expected EPA regulation is just the latest in President Biden's anti-fossil fuels agenda, coercing the retirement of electricity sources that are needed during the grid transition. Michelle Bloodworth, the president and CEO of America's Power, a coal power trade group, told Fox News Digital. EPA's actions are contrary to the concerns of grid operators and other energy experts who have warned about possible electricity shortages, she continued. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in June 2022 that an Obama-era rule limiting power plant emissions under the Clean Air Act was unconstitutional, since Congress never granted the EPA the explicit power to issue such regulations. But The Inflation Reduction Act passed 2 months ago. After that ruling, allows the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, that part of that article is really ironic, isn't it? It's like, okay, the Inflation Reduction Act um, allowed the EPA to do this, which is it's just going to create more inflation. Yeah, so if they really wanted this, let's push nuclear. You don't have to curb any of this. Let nuclear free. Limit all this regulation they have. Let them actually do stuff, which they're just doing that on their own, even with government regulation, with the government not pushing it. Nuclear power is going insane. So this is just going to happen anyway, most likely, in the next 10 to 20 years. But them just pushing this, it's just going to create higher costs for the lowest income families. I always think that's funny, like combating climate change. It's just going to raise power prices if you do this, because the cost is just going to inherently go up with more equipment. I mean, I don't mind having less pollution. Pollution's bad, not good, creates a lot of health effects, but I don't think the government should be the ones pushing this. The market should. The market should be demanding cleaner situations, where they're producing power. Let's go nuclear. Nuclear is really clean, doesn't create pollution. All good to go. It creates waste, but the new technologies can use the waste in the power production. They can use it in other ways and recycle it. Let's go that way. Just trying to limit stuff with government force, it's not going to work. Well, I mean, it'll just do what it does. They're doing the same thing with cars. They're like, okay, by 2035 or whatever, you just basically can't have gasoline cars anymore, which is ironic because they're trying to fight climate change. But in order to get all these materials for batteries, they use fossil fuels in like crazy. And they're all using fossil fuels. So it's just creating more climate change and more pollution, but they don't care about that. It's really weird. And in the shelf life for a battery car is generally right now way lower than a petroleum car. And they're getting better. Tesla's really on the forefront of this, and they want to get 1,000,000 miles out of their batteries, which when they can achieve that, that'll definitely be a game changer. But we're not there quite yet, and all of this it's just going to backfire, and it's going to hurt the lowest income families, which ironically are probably the people that vote for this type of stuff. It's very interesting. But most of this is just my opinion. What is your opinion on this story? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for daily news updates. Hit that notification bell and share this video to help spread the news. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.